What's a scary science fact that the public knows nothing about?
Heart muscle cells don't reproduce much in adults, roughly 1% per year. If you have an infarction or other stressor that kills those cells, then your heart won't be able to grow new cells to replace the dead ones. This is why patients with diseases like heart failure end up needing a heart transplant. Trying to get this process to happen is a major goal for many cardiac researchers. Edit. Thank you all for making this such an engaging and interesting discussion. I've been studying heart cells for 10+ years now, basic scientist, no clinical training, and it's so refreshing to read many diverse perspectives and on-point questions.
Also why cocaine should be used very, very infrequently, if at all, as it's directly cardiotoxic. Edit. Dudes, I'm not a doctor, I can't give you medical advice. Edit. Just Google D+ cardiotoxicity people. Research the F out of poo before you try it and test poo with reagents, for God's sake, it's so easy and cheap.
1 in 3 people will get cancer. It's pretty F-ed.
It's 2 in 5 in the US and slightly higher in the EU, especially Germany, where it is almost 1 in 2. Germany, German text link.
Anthrax spores can remain viable for decades in the soil or animal products such as dried or processed hides and wool.
I heard of issues coming up with those Tough Mudder type obstacle courses. Company rents out a field, digs up the mud is contaminated with agricultural runoff, aka feces, and people get all kinds of infections and viruses.
When doing an autopsy, they don't put the organs back where they belong, they are all stored in the belly.
All together in a bag, like giblets in poultry.
Scientists don't know exactly how acetaminophen works to relieve pain and reduce fever. They have an idea but nothing for sure. But yet it's the most commonly used pain reliever in the world.
This is actually true of a large number of medications.
Trauma can cause structural changes to your brain. PTSD is literally an injury.
Trained dogs can smell when someone with PTSD is triggered. The amygdala tells the body to start producing stress hormones, and dogs are able to smell the sweating that causes. Great book on PTSD if anyone is interested. The Body Keeps the Score by Van der Kolk.
Approximately 60%, in some reports, of the world's population have the parasite Toxoplasma gondii in their brain. For a long time it's thought to have been a benign presence, but recent statistical research shows that it may have an impact on things like levels of anger and rates of accidents and suicide. When gondii is on rats, it changes their behavior so that they find the smell of cat urine sexually appealing. So they find cats and get eaten. In the gut of the cat the parasite can reproduce. I only recently learned that when you get sunburned, the burn isn't because of skin cell damage. The UV radiation damages the DNA. Then the skin cells decide to commit suicide and fall off so that the damaged DNA doesn't produce cancer. I'll never be mad at my skin peeling again.
This is not to say that you won't get skin cancer from sunburn because your skin peels. You absolutely will get skin cancer if you burn over and over. Source: I'm 35 with a dozen basal cell carcinomas and 1 squamous cell carcinoma removed from my body by way of minor surgery. Have been sunburnt more times than I can remember and peel like a leper after the bad ones. The United States has lost and never recovered at least 6 nuclear devices.
Prions are terrifying. They're basically zombies at a protein level. They're misshapen in such a way that causes them to misshape other proteins. Normal methods of disinfection don't work. This makes researching them a very tricky matter, as while most cases involve eating infected meat, mishandling prion samples is all it takes. Tricky part is, there is no treatment either. Once they get in you, they are 100% fatal. It has been a while since I've studied them, so this picture may be incomplete, but I do know they're always fatal.
If your dog swims in a lake after receiving a spot-on flea treatment, it absolutely decimates the invertebrate population. A large dog swimming in 8 Olympic swimming pools worth of water soon after treatment will leach enough neurotoxin to kill 50% of the lake's invertebrate population within 48 hours. I say after, I mean relatively soon after, within say a day, to have an effect quite this devastating. The leaching does reduce over the month, but it's still there, and the effect of multiple dogs still allows for a terrible buildup of chemicals.
This has blown my mind. What are the active chemicals that cause this?
Imidacloprid, permethrin and methoprene.
DuPont knowingly infected over 90% of the American population with PFOAs, a harmful plastic that has a half-life of 20 years. Lawsuit is still ongoing, but no one seems to be bothered. Edit. This link.
I heard that it's actually worldwide. John Oliver did a segment and he spoke of a study where a team went to pretty much every continent and everyone has a bit of FOAs in their blood BC of it.
Antimicrobial resistance. The bacteria are getting resistant to the DG much faster than the rate at which we are producing new DG. Soon we will reach a scenario when antibiotics cannot treat simple yet lethal infections.
Brain aneurysms can be completely unpredictable and can happen at any time in your life, no matter how healthy you are. A kid who I went to high school with at the age of 16 just did not wake up one morning and his cause of death was a brain aneurysm.
Worked a high school volleyball game as a medic not too long ago. One of the girls made a great jump, then smashed the ball. Think she scored too, but I'm not familiar with the rules. She then comes walking over to me and said she felt a pop in the back of her head. I gave her a full workup, didn't find anything, but said it was probably best to take her for a checkup. Just in case. We chatted on the ride about her college plans and her game. I found out 4 days later she had been declared brain dead. The pop was an aneurysm. This call really got under my skin.
Inside the permafrost around the world there is stored about twice the amount of CO2 we currently have in our atmosphere. That's why permafrost must stop melting. Edit. Thanks for all the nice serious comments. Edit 2. Thanks for the awards winking face. I appreciate it.
Before the vaccine, the number of people who have had HPV infection, and have had at least one sexual partner, was 85% in females and 91% of males. By far the most common STI.
Worth elaborating, there are a ton of strains, and most of them are relatively harmless. Only a couple produce notable symptoms or issues, so most people never have any clue they have it.
Microplastics revealed in the placentas of unborn babies, link. Also, our fruits and veggies are soaking up microplastics through their roots, link. Brain damage and behavioral disorders in fish induced by plastic nanoparticles delivered through the food chain, link. Mouse study shows microplastics infiltrate blood-brain barrier, link. Immunology. A dive into plastic toxicity and our immune system, link.
An asteroid passed the Earth in September that was about 40 to 90 meters in diameter, and we didn't see it until a day later because it traveled towards us from the direction of the Sun. It passed us at half the distance from the Earth to the Moon.
Just to add a bit of context, you can fit 2 Jupiters between Earth and the Moon. Update, by popular demand, the WHO research paper, link. A lot of people in rural towns with an elevated cemetery around, this happens in Ireland a lot, there is formaldehyde leaking into the drinking water. But it won't kill you, but the thought of drinking dead people juice is probably equally bad. Sorry not sorry. Update, I have a PDF link to the scientific research paper from WHO concerning the requirements for safe drinking water, and it covers the entire formaldehyde in drinking water issue, if anyone is interested. I read it and I can confirm it's true, but not detrimental to your health, even long-term. Thumbs up. Light skin tone.
Totally not me thinking the water was tasting weird recently. I happen to live in Ireland.
We might be sitting on a ticking time bomb of mad cow disease, prion disease, that was in tainted beef in the 90s. The most closely related prion disease, kuru, has an average incubation period of several decades, like 30 years or so. So there's a theory that the people who died from mad cow disease in the 90s are actually only a very small fraction of the people who contracted it, technically called VCJD if it's in humans, as they were just the people who the disease happened to progress very fast in. There may be hundreds of thousands if not millions of people who are going to start losing their sanity and dying as their brains rot from the inside in the next several years. There's also a pretty good chance this isn't true though, and nothing will happen. A lot of scientists believe the incubation period is 10 years or less, as we haven't really seen growing numbers of VCJD deaths yet. Since we have no way of finding out, the test for VCJD is just looking at someone's brain to see if it's all messed up, all we can really do is just wait and see if something happens and try to prevent further spread. The longer nothing happens, the more probable it is that there's no issue. But that's why blood donors from Europe, the UK were banned outright. If a bunch of people do have it and donated blood, things will be bad to say the least. Although they'll already be bad when the UK life expectancy drops a decade.
So many people will struggle with infertility. It's not talked about or really discussed in middle school or high school in health class. When it happens, it's such a shock to the families and they are completely unprepared. The numbers are going up as well. Statistical 1/4 pregnancies end in miscarriage. Which is pretty high, but again, miscarriage isn't discussed.
The universe's Higgs field might be metastable. Link.
I came here for vacuum decay.
Nutrition deficiencies such as iron, vitamin C have many symptoms that were uncovered in an experiment in residential school. They would have a class of indigenous children that would never get iron from foods or any intake. Another class would get the iron supplements, then compare for results. There are alternative ways some proteins can form tertiary structures. These different structures make the protein unable to function. These alternate protein structures are infectious and incurable as they are so stable. If you get some in your blood, they will slowly convert your own proteins when making contact. They're called prions.
It gets worse. All of the diseases they cause are horrific progressive nightmares that aren't just incurable, but untreatable. And they're all 100% fatal. The human body temperature in developed countries is actually declining, and at the same time global warming is increasing the temperature thresholds for many fungus types. This is leading to a whole new medical issue of fungus infecting humans, and its main source of protection, body temperature, is no longer working. But that body temperature is a large reason for the success of mammals all over the world. After the KT extinction, the sun was blocked and cold-blooded species couldn't raise their body temperature to kill off infections in their bodies. There is ample evidence that after KT that fungi spread all over the world in massive quantities, which leads many to believe this led to the ascendancy of mammals on Earth. Radiolab story about this for those of you interested in learning more and sources. Link.
How easy it is to inadvertently seriously damage yourself with an unfortunate combination of ordinary supermarket products. Also, prions. Prions.
I'm glad to see prions so high up here. That's one nasty bugger. And still incurable.
And can spontaneously form right there inside of you. Super fun. This is of course incredibly rare and not something anyone should be stressing about in their day-to-day life. Especially because there's all you can do about it should it happen. Laughing face.
GRP fruits completely with a poolload of prescription medications. Edit, GRP fruits. Not GRP fruits.
Probably the most common one that will affect the general healthy individual is that it can with some contraceptive pills. Ain't got no time for no GRP fruit baby. Edit. There seems to be a few worried people, so just for clarification, it's probably not going to actually get you pregnant. It may really ramp up those pesky side effects due to its interacts with estrogen production, though, so still worth considering.
That's an expensive citrus. Decopon move over. There is a naturally occurring thought in many humans named the call of the void, where, without reason, humans see a way they could die and they wonder whether they should kill themselves, even if they have no real intention of doing so. Edit, yes, the true term is l'appel du vide, the French term for call of the void. Also, thanks for the awards. I believe this is my first gold.
Standing next to a cliff and getting the urge to jump.
I learned about ton 618 the other day. My facts here may be mildly incorrect. Feel free to Google. It's a black hole about 10.3 billion light-years away, but we can still detect the massive amount of light bending around it. It's so large, they had to make a new category of black hole for it called ultramassive black holes. It's believed to be the largest thing in the universe. Its diameter is ** 14 times * the diameter of Neptune's orbit. So it could fit our entire solar system in it 14 times across, side to side. If the black hole replaced our sun, we would be deleted. If it replaced the black hole that is currently at the center of the Milky Way, within 120 years the Milky Way would be deleted. This black hole doesn't swallow planets, it swallows entire galaxies *. The idea of this thing freaks me the F out. Edit. Whoa, I went for a nap and this blew TF up. Most upvoted comment of all time, let's go. So yeah, I was mistaken a few times here. Like if the black hole replaced ours, it would take 120 years to destroy us, not the entire galaxy. The black hole is larger than I originally said, and true black holes don't technically give off light, but they are pretty much surrounded by light. I typed this out from memory and sadly my memory is pure garbage, but still I'm glad this encouraged you folks to look more into it and stuff. Space is cool and terrifying, huh?
Not 14 times the orbit of Neptune. *40 *** times the orbit of Neptune. And #x200b. Link. And #x200b. Holy crap. and #X200b. Thankfully it is something like 18 billion light-years away, so not exactly a celestial neighbor.
If my college biology professor wasn't completely misinformed, most humans have some form of parasite living inside them. Some variety of worm, etc. There are just creepy crawlies in our insides and we might never notice them. The one that came closest to giving me nightmares was hookworms. Although the thought that you could have heartworms kind of messed with me, too. Evidently, they're not just for dogs.
Hookworms are one that most people in developed areas don't have, and there's evidence that's why autoimmune disease and allergies are so common in those areas. Like the hookworms produce a mild immune suppressant, and the immune system attacks them. Without those interactions, the body attacks harmless environmental contaminants, allergies, or itself, autoimmune, e.g. Crohn's disease.
Another Carrington event. The original Carrington event was in 1859, which was basically an intense geomagnetic storm that disrupted, knocked out telegrams because that's all the technology there was to disrupt back then. Nowadays we use electricity for virtually everything. If it hit now, the effect would be like an EMP, but globally. There'd be no functional technology that involved electrics. In essence, losing all electrics would in turn stop communications, then logistics, and then fundamental infrastructure like food distribution, healthcare and utilities other than electricity.
A lot of technology is shielded. But yeah, that would be fun.
At any given time, the Earth can be hit with a gamma-ray burst. We won't see it coming since it moves at the speed of light, and all life apart from deep underground or deep in the ocean will be wiped out in minutes. Although unlikely, it can happen at any time.
This is dramatically true, but I have one method to UN scare this, which is the same method that I apply to every civilization-ending space threat, either known or unknown. It did not happen in the last 65 million years. It is very implausible it will happen either in your lifetime or the lifetime of anyone you'll ever know.
The youngest persons who developed Alzheimer's were around 25 years old. One lady got diagnosed with it at 31 while pregnant. By the way, when you get the disease at like 65, it didn't suddenly begin. It has been creeping up and ravaging your brain for at least 20 years, if not more. You just didn't realize it because our brain is very good at compensating damages until it cannot. Basically, the day you lose yourself in the supermarket, it's too late. Your brain is mostly mush and there is so far nothing you can do. That means that if you are 40 to 60 years old and reading this, chances are that some of you already started to experience the onset of Alzheimer's brain degeneration. It's just not advanced enough for you to realize it. Have a nice day. Limnic eruptions. There are pockets of CO2 trapped under lakes all around the world that can be released at any time, creating an invisible tidal wave that kills everything in its path. Since it's heavier than air, you will just suddenly start choking and die.
It's only been recorded twice, in two lakes very close to each other. It's exceptionally rare, requires incredibly specific circumstances, such as proximity to volcanic activity, and a lake where the deeper waters and shallow waters never mix. Approximately 99.9% of lakes mix at least once a year. It also must have a cool lake bed despite being in an area with high volcanic activity.
There's many unknown and forgotten diseases trapped in the permafrost, and it's slowly but surely melting away. There's been a few cases in Russia, while exploring for oil, gas I believe, of people dying of strange diseases that we have no idea how to treat, because they've basically been hidden there since before medicine even existed. Some could be contagious, we just know very little about it.
If you're exposed to rabies and start to show symptoms, your chance of survival is virtually 0%.
We give our pets rabies vaccines. Are there rabies vaccines for people?
There was a person who made a post one time that got hugely popular. This person was a chemical worker of some kind and went into detail about some of the nearly totally unknown, but insanely terrifying chemicals that exist. They ranged from terrifying to damn near apocalyptic. It was a super interesting read. I wouldn't know how to find it now, but maybe someone else would be able to. That post would really fit here. Edit. I checked on the links provided directly to me and I don't think it's any of them, but I have found some great reading. I don't think it was a direct post, but a reply to a post. It blew up and got hugely popular though. The guy listed a bunch of stuff in order of seriousness and what to do, expect in case of spill or containment leak. I recall his most serious one being more or less, By the time you realize it's happened, you and everyone in the building around you are screwed.
Dimethylmercury, link. Greater than the toxicity of dimethylmercury was highlighted with the death of Karen Wetterhahn, a professor of chemistry at Dartmouth College, in 1997. After she spilled a few drops of this compound on her latex glove, the barrier was compromised, and the chemical permeated her gloves and was absorbed into her skin. It circulated through her body and accumulated in her brain, resulting in her death 10 months later.
That you should never use bleach to clean cat pee. The combination creates chlorine gas that is very toxic.
Also, don't mix vinegar with bleach. It can make potentially lethal chlorine gas. Edit. When it's mixed in a poorly ventilated area is when it can be fatal. Still, not a good choice to do at all. One or the other.
The German Nazi army consumed massive amounts of Pervitin, a brand name for literal meth, and the company producing Pervitin made the pills till the 1980s, and the armies used Pervitin for drills till then. The Nazis also put Pervitin in chocolates, calling it Hausfrauenschokolade, to ease the dreaded life of a stay-at-home mother, and so on. Eastern Germany still has a huge meth problem, which is a whole lot less surprising, knowing that it has been produced there legally up until fairly recently.
There was a famous case where a Finnish soldier ate an entire bottle of Pervitin, 30 pills, while trying to escape Soviets, which caused him to pass out. After waking up, he skied over 400 kilometers in -30 to -20 degree cold, was injured by a landmine and laid in a ditch for a week waiting for help. During the week he survived by eating a raw bird and some pine buds. When he was eventually rescued, his heart rate was measured at 200 BPM and he weighed only 43 kilograms.
The vacuum decay death of the universe. The basic explain like I'm 5 premise is that it is possible that at some point in the universe itself started collapsing into a more stable version of itself, and once this started, the collapse spreads outwards into all directions at the speed of light. Because it travels at the speed of light, there is no way to know it's coming. You could literally stop existing the next second.
This is strangely comforting, knowing you'd have no idea when it's coming and it would be instantaneous and no one would miss you.
Saccadich masking, a mechanism our eyes have that cuts off the processing of retinal images when it becomes blurred. Humans become effectively blind during a saccade.
Microplastics in the food and water supplies are crossing the blood-brain barrier. Shush.
More entertaining, enjoyable is that it isn't even mostly from garbage. It's from our synthetic fiber clothes degrading in the wash.
The plague is still out there. The bubonic plague is endemic in many parts of the world, but cases are very rare because we've got it pretty well handled. If there's a general breakdown in society like a nuclear war, super volcano eruption or asteroid impact, it's out there waiting to come back.
Only 2 diseases in all of human history have ever been eradicated in the wild: smallpox and rinderpest. And smallpox is still present in several labs around the world and has even claimed a victim in that state. Rinderpest only affects cattle and there are still samples around. Disease-wise, everything else that ever existed is still around in some form, somewhere in the wild, and even those 2 are still present in labs.
Many antibiotics make hormonal birth control stop working. Not just a fact but a warning.
Also, Plan B doesn't work if you're about to or already ovulating. Here I am, thinking if a condom breaks or something it's okay. BC, there's always emergency contraception. Nope. Not if the egg has already been released. IDK, how I never knew that till now.
When the baby boomer generation fills the nursing homes, there very likely won't be enough nursing staff to care for them, as more and more nurses are leaving the profession.
Magnolia plants are so old that they predate the evolution of pollination by bees. They were pollinated by beetles' smiley face.
During WW2, the Japanese would continuously experiment on the people they captured, like open a pregnant woman's stomach and see the baby, infect her with syphilis and see the effects, etc., while the Nazis also did commit genocide and all that. Japan was never confronted about those war crimes.
I live in the Philippines, a country who suffered terribly under Japanese occupation. Aside from the war being taught through primary to high schools, almost every other family has grandparents who can vividly recall the brutality of the Japanese occupation. From hiding your babies in forests to trunks to dug up holes, because the babies get stabbed once heard crying, to RPS and comfort women, Every other family would have a Japanese blood in them, and we know this is the reason, to bombings and mass shootings. Some elders would tell these tales on how they hid from this, to psychological traumas we still see until today. Even with some of my older relatives, the PTSD still exhibits. The trauma runs deep. It's never forgotten here in the Philippines.
We've scoured the ocean mostly clean of life. The major fisheries are down something like 80% from their peaks. And nobody is doing anything about it. Thank you for watching. We upload new videos every day, so be sure to come back for more fun. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed the video.